Hello and welcome to our second session on the art of listening. Why is listening so important? Well, we mentioned some of it already, but primarily it's important because it's a very practical way of becoming a living image and likeness of God to others. When we learn how to listen, we become like God, who is the great listener. And we start conveying a message to those around us. And the message is that God cares, that God understands, and that God is interested, and that you are important, and that you matter to God. And hence we are wishing to grow in that likeness. We want to be like Him. We want to have our ears opened in the same way that He has His ears opened to us. And so we want to have that attitude of openness that helps us to convey this loving presence of God to other people. But we know from experience it's not very easy, it's not straightforward to be a good listener. I will highlight some of the things based on a concrete example of what might be happening to people when they come to the celebration of the Mass. Because that's something that's close to home, that's something that's real, and that does happen to us. But you need to apply this to your own daily life. So part of my daily life is celebration of Mass, and this is what probably takes place on a daily basis. So apply all these things to yourself and ask yourself, well, what is true for me? What blocks me on the path of being that loving presence of God for others? What blocks me in this ability of learning, of listening well? Certain things happen to us immediately. As soon as I go out from the sacristy and appear in front of the people have their judgment made already. We are very judgmental people. It's no use protesting that you're not, that somehow you're different from me. We all judge, and it's instantaneous judgments at times. Before we open our mouths, you judge me by the way I look, by the way I walk. So many things you judge. And so the judgment is already made. And that judgment can impact my ability to listen. Because I might think, well, oh, I know him, he's gonna go on forever. And if that comes up, the chances are I might switch off. By the time the homily comes, I will switch myself off already. I'm no longer listening. I might say to myself, well, I know what he's going to say. He keeps saying the same thing all over again. Again, I've switched off before anyone opens their mouth already. It might be that the differences are due to our cultures, our backgrounds. It might be that we carry a lot of prejudice within ourselves. And that prejudice comes in various forms. And as I mentioned, this list is not exhaustive by any means. But it might be, you might say to yourselves, well, this guy was born in Poland. I live my life here. He's got a totally different background, totally different understanding of life and the church and so on. What could he possibly tell me of use to me? You might switch off already, based on where I come from. You might say to yourself, well, he looks relatively young. Can he teach me anything about life that I have lived far longer than he has? What experience has he got? Again, you've switched off from listening at that very moment. In some cultures, as we know, in different parts of the world, you need to be a certain age in order to be listened to. So me being a relatively young age, I'd have no hope. And it doesn't matter what experience you have. You're just the wrong age. And you live in a country, in a society, within a culture that doesn't hold much respect for you at your age. Because the elders are the more respected. So we have all these different cultures, different notions, different ideas, different judgments that are coming our way non-stop. And all of these have an effect on my ability to listen. You might come into church being preoccupied with something else. Your mind might be somewhere else altogether. You might be thinking, what will I have for lunch afterwards? You might be thinking about the friend you're going to meet later. You're not listening to what's taking place at that moment. You might be in pain. You might be hurt. And that pain can be physical, can be emotional. If you're in so much pain, your whole focus will go to that pain. You're not able to listen at that moment to anything that's coming your way from other people. You might be stressed. You might be going through a bad day for all sorts of reasons. Again, all of this will impact your ability to listen. You'll be there, you'll hear the words come your way, but actually you're not involved, you're not listening. So this is a practical example. There's so many different things. You might not like the way I speak. I might be very monotonous. My tone might not change for the whole 10 minutes of my homily. And if I slow down and become reflective over every single word that I keep saying, the chances are you'll fall asleep and you'll switch off. So many things. Hopefully it just illustrates for us how difficult it is to be listening attentively to the other person. Because there's so many things that can distract us. You know, these great devices, phones, we communicate with them, we use them for communication. I'm using a computer now to record this session, and through the wonder of technology, you're able to watch this on the internet. Great stuff. But so many times you want to listen to somebody else, you're speaking with them, and they're looking at their messages here. They're not listening to you. Distractions are everywhere. And we need to filter all this noise, all this information coming our way. It might be that you don't like what I'm saying. Maybe there's a word that I use, and for you it's like a no-no. This word is no good. As soon as you hear that word or a topic of conversation, you switch off. Something happens to you, you start reacting. What's useful for us is to pay attention to those moments and to realize, well, is any of these examples true for me? So leave the church for the time being, leave the Mass. That was the concrete example for me to help to illustrate the point, but bring yourself home, bring yourself back to work. Does this still hold true for you in one way or another? Because a great listener is somebody who is engaged with the other person, who doesn't switch off easily, who doesn't make that many judgments, who is open to the other person, who is able to accept the person as they are, who sees value in that person, who is willing to so I can allow myself to be surprised by what this person wants to say to me. And so, the importance of listening. Write down for yourself, what's blocking me? What prevents me in this great act of listening? If there is a topic of conversation, if there is a word that creates a strong reaction within me, well, pay attention to it. What reaction? What feelings get stirred up? Where did that start? How did that come about? Because there has to be a starting point. And so life becomes exciting. Life becomes a journey of discovery. Because we become like little detectives almost. And remember that this is not just us playing a game with ourselves in some way. This is us discovering important things about ourselves. And the person that helps us to discover these things is the Holy Spirit. He is the source of our wisdom. He is the source of our knowledge. And so when we discover these things, it's only there for a reason that we can change, we can grow, we can overcome these obstacles. Because unless I know what the obstacle is, I can do nothing about it. As soon as I become aware, or it comes to my attention, I've got a chance, there's hope for me. The Lord has pointed the way for me. So all I need to do is now pay attention to it and ask myself, okay, what can I do about this? How can I essentially be a more loving presence to those around me? Because that's what it comes down to. To be a great listener is to be a loving presence for somebody, is to be a mirror image of God for somebody, is to actually be involved in God's saving work. So in our next session we will look at the various things we are meant to be listening to. God, environment, other people, ourselves, our feelings, our emotions, so many things. But today we thank God for what He is revealing to us about ourselves. And pray to Him to help you remove those obstacles. Remember, the chances are we have picked them up all the way from our birth. We've been learning how to live. We've been learning how to deal with things. And we've been learning how to listen. Some of us have had great learning. Some of us need to relearn things. And so pray to the Spirit, who is creating us anew every day, to help us relearn, to help us to grow in our ability to listen. God bless.